Hi, everybody. My name's Finola. I'm VP of Creative and Client Strategy at Linqia, the leading independent influencer marketing agency in the US. And I'm so excited to be joined today by Brad Ross. Brad is Head of Global Partnerships and Social Media Marketing at Bank of America. Thanks for joining me, Brad.
Hey, thank you. It's so nice to be here, and it's wonderful to be in Cannes on the Monday at the kickoff of the week.
Yeah, this is what we look like at the beginning of the week. Not
Yes.
sure what we're going to look like by the end of today.
Yeah, you're going to need some fancy editing if this was done on Friday. That's for sure.
Well, Brad, in preparation for today's conversation, I took a look at your LinkedIn, and one thing that really stood out to me was that you said you were passionate about passion. So wanted to start by asking you, what's something you're passionate about that we might not know just from looking at your resume?
Yeah, look, I think I've always believed that if you're not doing what you love, then you're not going to give your best to it. So whether it's at work or in life in general, I've always tried to use passion as a driver of that. I'm just passionate in general about fitness and health. So outside of the work environment, and it's nice that my passions can, collide in that regard.
Yeah.
But outside of the work environment, it's definitely health, fitness, gym, everything that's going on now with the longevity perspective. From wearables and optimizing life. That's the space I'm in now, I guess, where I am at my age and what's important to me. That's what I'm passionate about now.
So we're going to catch you on a 7 a.m. run here at Cannes? Or?
Yeah. It's quite funny because even now, when I decide where I'm going to stay, I always look at the gym before I look at the hotel.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where I am in my life at the moment.
And what do you look for in a hotel gym? What are some of the standout features?
I mean, anything that just helps you do both the functional fitness side, good weights room, those kind of things.
Got it. So you mentioned that it's lucky for you that your passion areas do intersect with your day job. And we're here in Cannes. Sports is a big topic, fitness, longevity, all things I've seen panels on the docket for the week. So how do you get to marry your passion from outside work with what you do for your day job?
Yeah, I think, given the role that I play at Bank of America and I oversee all our global partnerships, a large portion of that is our sports partnerships. And so understanding the role that sports plays in people's lives, whether it's bringing people together and uniting people in certain ways, or whether it's the behind the scenes and what it's like to try and become a sportsman or sportswoman and the journey so many of them go through. Bank of America, for us, one of the things that we're focusing on is access and to make sports more accessible to young people today. And that doesn't just mean an opportunity to play on a field. It's everything that comes holistically with being a sportsman or sportswoman in today's world. So I love the fact that I get to, try and understand the journey of sports from grassroots all the way through to elite or professional sports. And so, being able to marry that, both in terms of what I love to do and passion, and then how that comes to life, it's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that recently you announced the continuation of your partnership with KC Current. You mentioned women's sports a couple of times. We're obviously seeing such a huge boom and interest in women's sports right now. Could you talk a little bit about that partnership, what it involves, and why you believe in investing in women's sports?
Absolutely. Well, look, firstly, let me say that I hope we get to a point one day where we don't talk about women's sports and men's sports. I hope we get to a point soon in the future that we just talk about sports in general. But women's sports is at a very important milestone. When you look at the commercialization space of women's sport, when you look at the fandom of women's sports is moving from just an event every 4 years, big kind of opportunity, to one that's always on. And you look at some of the NWSL teams like KC Current or our partnerships that we've also announced with Gotham FC or Portland Thorns, you're seeing that the fandom behind that is not related to a FIFA World Cup or FIFA Women's World Cup every 4 years. There's a base of fans that are being involved in that far broader than just once in a couple of months. With that, you're seeing the valuation on the teams themselves. And so because sports is that opportunity to connect with things we care about, and as humans in today's world where technology takes us so far, we still want that opportunity to connect and just be human. And so I think sports gives us that opportunity. I think women's sports right now is at that pinnacle point where the next 10 years, I think, are going to be huge for women's sports in general, across all the verticals and across all the different sporting codes. Yeah. So it's excited to be part of that.
Yeah, when you talk about the human first nature of sports, of course, my mind goes to creators and athletes as creators, right? So There's the team brands, there's the brand partnerships, but there's also athletes who are building their own brand, thinking about additional revenue streams. Do you have any advice to young, aspiring athletes out there who are maybe working with brands for the first time?
Yeah, look, I think when you think about NIL and what that has provided youngsters today to really make a name for themselves and build a brand around who they are, I think that was the open door moment. But I think for youngsters that are coming into the sports world, as you think about building your brand, I would say first know who you are, understand, your own journey and what's important to you. So know your values and what drives you. Secondly, be authentic and be real in how you communicate. I think a lot of times there's a lot of money in that space. I would suggest you don't just chase the money. To build a brand, you have to build what's important to you, and like-minded brands will come to you. So I'd say don't chase a brand and try to be something that you're not in order to make a brand happy. Do it the other way around. Be who you are. Do what's real and meaningful to you, and like-minded brands will come and find you. And I think there's a distinction in that, in how you think about that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the two parts of your job title, right? So global partnerships and also social media marketing. How do those two parts of your role intersect? Is every partnership that you do designed primarily for social? Is some of it on the ground? And when we talk about social here, is this on the organic side, the paid, or both?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting combination. And I think it's one that has organically grown. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you could talk about sports or global marketing partnerships in one bucket, and you could have spoken about social media in a separate bucket. I think that in order to amplify your partnerships, in order to make the most of what you're doing, the traditional channels and the traditional ways of doing that no longer exist. And so you have to be forging ahead in a different way. And so when you think about partnerships in social media, there almost is a marriage that exists in a way that in today's world, with the opportunities that we have, with the rise of the influencers and the creative brands, with technology where it is, it gives you the opportunity to bring partnerships in social and benefit each other. This gives you compelling content on social. So when you're as a brand trying to build out a social media strategy, you want to talk about your brand, what the brand stands for, the values. You want to use it from a performance point of view. But equally, you want to connect with consumers to their hearts and minds through things they care about. And sports gives you that shortcut. So the social side of the job is benefiting from the partnerships because it's giving you compelling content to talk about, compelling opportunities to, be part of. And then on the partnership side, it's giving you the opportunity to truly amplify what you're doing, to bring it to life in ways that just weren't there just 2-3 years ago. And so I think the combination of the two gives you that 1 + 1 = 3 opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, if I think about what I might want from a bank on social media, right? Certainly entertaining content is one thing. Sometimes there may be customer service queries, though, and sometimes you might go for financial education. So how do you think about balancing, and do you have a certain percentage that you think should be that kind of edutaining or entertaining content?
Yeah, it's an interesting question in our category, especially, right? You want to build trust. I think the work that we do in the sports world or just in the broader marketing partnership world helps you build that trust layer and that credibility layer. At the same time, you want to be giving proper information and education. And so using creators to help spread the message and bring that to life is important because, you're looking for a financial institution that you trust, that you can get trustworthy information from, and that ultimately that your money is in good hands. So I don't know if the ratio is 50-50, 60-40. I think it's trial and error at the moment. And, we're just trying to see what works the best for our clients, for our customers. Even the segmentation between the customers, right? You have existing customers and you have prospects that are hopefully future customers. And the way you connect with them are not always the same. They're slightly different. And what's important to them doesn't always, gel with what's important to future clients. So you have to make sure that you're balancing between the message, the medium, what you're putting out there, and which kind of partnerships, influencers, creators you're working with to help bring that to life.
Yeah.
There's so much misinformation out there too that really, finding the credible sources is incredibly important in today's world. And what we found is, humans listen to humans more than they listen to brands. And so bringing the right humans on board as part of the social media approach is very, very important.
Absolutely. I mean, on this point of financial services, the trust, you're a little over a year in to the role, and much of your career before this was in CPG. So, how has the move to financial services been? And has there been anything that surprised you about moving into this space?
Look, I think financial services as a category, the biggest change or step change for me was obviously when I'm now operating in a regulated environment. So the regulatory frameworks, the risk, the compliance is certainly at a higher level than what I worked at previously. So that wasn't a surprise because you know you're going into that. But one thing was that remains the same is whether you're talking about selling a beverage, a product, or a financial service, you're talking to humans at the end of the day. They have needs and wants. And the insights and the human insights are what's always going to drive the work. And that's the important piece on both. So, you know, as long as we are human and we all have our own desires, needs, and wants, for a marketer, it's to try and understand that, regardless of the category you're in, and then bring that to life within the construct of what you're working within.
Yeah. And then just to wrap us up, one last question. You talked about humans listen to other humans. So, you know, with the humans you choose to partner with, what are some of the things you're looking for? Quick fire, what makes somebody a perfect partner to work with Bank of America?
I think it's them being credible in the space that they operate, not just running off the money, but actually making sure that they know who they are and what they're about, because that translates to, you know, genuineness, it translates to realness. And I think it's just someone that shares the values. You know, when you build a partnership, it goes far, it's far reaching. And the ones that I find have been the best, especially with creators or influencers that I've worked with, are where there's a like-minded set of values that intersect between the brand and the individual. And it almost feels natural for them then to be talking about your brand as opposed to a paycheck for your brand. And I think that's the kind of key difference, I would say. And those are the key ingredients that I think makes a good creator today.
So, well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Brad. Best of luck surviving Cannes Week. And thank you to Brand Innovators for having us.
Thank you. And thanks, Brand Innovators. Good to be here.